It took me approximately 53 minutes and 53 seconds to unbox and map the GOAT O1000 LiDAR Pro. Now the question is, am I done mowing forever because I spent that time to map my lawn? Well, in this video, we're going to be finding that out. Today, we're going to answer 3 questions. Can it mow? Can it trim? And can it be completely hands-free? A huge thank you to ECOVACS for sponsoring this video. Let's get started.
Now, during the mapping process, the GOAT O1000 LiDAR Pro created a 3D map of my lawn using its LiDAR sensor on top. So this spins around and can see everywhere it is going, even if it is dark, which is really cool. So now that it has that map, it can begin starting the mowing, and it creates its own mowing pattern in the map to be most efficient as it is going around. Now, this is my first mow of the season, so we have some areas that have higher grass, and you can set in the app that you have higher grass areas. Now, how is it navigating around? Well, with the LiDAR, it's using a holoscope 360-degree dual LiDAR navigation. So not only does it have the LiDAR on top, being able to see all different kinds of objects, it's using a 3D time-of-flight sensor LiDAR right on the front, so it can see different objects, and it can actually distinguish between objects that are in its path and be able to easily navigate around them. Now onto how this mows. Well, it has one disc in the center of the mower that has 3 different blades with a cutting width of 8.6 inches. It then has a cutting height of 1.2 to 3.1 inches, and that is adjustable per lawn. It's automatically going to be able to do that. And then you can adjust the speed of the mow at a normal speed or a quick speed. There is no adjustment for the speed of the blades. And there you can see the length of that, doing a really nice cut there in between the long grass there. Here's a time lapse of how it has cut this longer grass area after a few passes, definitely doing the job. Now it did miss 1 or 2, but again, this was the first mow. Longer areas are going to take a bit more time. After the second and third mow, I saw all the longer grass areas be completely removed, and now all of the grass is looking nice and cut with a smooth carpet-like finish. For this back area, there's one more section that it needs to finish, and if there were any times that maybe there was an obstacle in the way or it wasn't able to get to a certain part, it will go through and do those portions, and then it's going to complete the area mow by doing an edge all the way around the border of the perimeter of the lawn. This is getting as close as it can to the edge from where you mapped it or where you said the flush boundaries are, and now it has completed that area, which now it's going to follow the path to the next area, and it only needs an 80 width centimeter path to get through. Now, looking at the final results of this lawn, it looks great. Just a little bit of trimming to do later. Here, let's go take a look at the rest of the lawn. And here it started in the front, and here you can see it's at an angle. This can be adjusted in the app, and you can have it automatically change per week. Now, at this point, it did run out of battery at 15%, so it went back, recharged. 70 minutes later, it was out mowing again. It is also equipped with a rain sensor, so if it begins raining while it's mowing, it will automatically dock, and you can set for how long it waits until it goes and mows again. There's also an animal protection mode where it will automatically dock at night. When it started back up here, it found the area with a ton of clovers. It did its best efforts to go through. I have it set on high grass mode. Did a pretty good job the second time it came past. You do have the option to manually mow to go through and get some of these high areas the first time, or anytime you want to get a little area a little bit more. But here we got it pretty good, and now it's going to complete the rest of this area. And here you can see how well it is able to cut as it goes by each pass. Now here you see a few grass clippings, but this is just mulching the lawn. There's nothing you'll need to pick up. After a few times of mowing, it will only be cutting a tiny bit every time. You never see extra grass on the lawn. And here's the final look at this lawn. Much improved. Definitely time to put on some weed killer. Next, we have this small lawn that it was able to map. Usually I have to just kind of merge it with the other area, but here it did a good job. It does struggle getting the corners. Here you can see at the left side of the screen at the very top, getting some of that higher area when it's such a small area, but that is something the TruEdge Trimmer will help with, and overall the results are great. Now moving on to the last area, and here you can see we have a very fertilized area which we're going to cut through, which again isn't too much for it to handle. It just sometimes sees it as an obstacle and avoids it. So there, it handled it pretty well. We'll come back to this, but there it went through, finished the rest of this lawn, and it looks great, finishing with that final edge around the entire border of the area. And then I did go through and manually mow this just so that the next time it goes out tomorrow, it's not going to have a problem getting all these larger areas cut down. And there it has completed the lawn, covering 2,304 square feet in about 144 minutes at the efficient rate. So it can mow about 1,938 square feet per hour.
And so there it clearly can mow. It did an amazing job. Even with my taller grass, setting that in the app, it had no issues being able to go and mow all the different areas. There were just 2 little portions I had to manually mow, but I'm not gonna call that an interaction just because you should have your lawn mowed to a shorter height before you start using this, because now we're going to be just mowing every couple of days and it's gonna keep the lawn exactly this height forever. Now it's time to move on to the TruEdge Trimmer. Now this is huge because typically once I have the robot mower go out, I then have to spend more time using my edger to be able to cut around the lawn, but now it's built right in here, so we can go ahead, turn that on. I've already specified all the areas in which I want it to cut, and let's see if it's able to get all the way done. There may be just a tiny bit left over that I need to do, but this should be able to take the majority of the work off my hands.
Out of the box, the TruEdge Trimmer was already installed. We just needed to install the brushes, and the trimming line is already there. We just needed to go in the app and specify which areas we wanted it to edge. Trimming is separate from the normal mow, so you'd need to schedule a separate time to trim. And also, whenever it is trimming, it will stop if it detects a person within 1.5 meters for safety, but it makes it a little harder to record. First, it tilts down the trimmer module and then ramps it up, and let's see how that looks. And there it's doing a great job covering that final edge that the mower wasn't able to get to. Now the trimmer is 7 inches wide, or about 18 centimeters, so it's going to be able to get a good amount of the edge if the mower isn't able to get right up to it. And here you can see as it passes by the difference between before it edged and after. Sometimes it would not line up properly, so I then need to go into the map and turn off some of the areas to be flush. I may need to remap some areas to make it so it lines up a little bit better, but that's the last step to figuring out how to get this to perfectly cut the lawn, so there's no extra work that needs to be done after it has done the trimming. And taking a look at what that looks like after that long run right next to this concrete barrier, it did a great job. There are a couple dandelions left, but that's okay. They're gonna be dead someday, but right there, cleaning up right on that line is exactly what I wanna be seeing. And here's another satisfying run of how it is doing, but then as soon as it detects me, it disables the trimmer, making sure that I'm safe, and then it passes me and goes around to the next area where there is no person detected. Next, we have an example of where it didn't do quite as good of a job. Next to the tramp, it seemed to be way too close, so it was not able to turn on the trimmer. Maybe it detected me as an object, but I did this a few times and I wasn't able to get that section cut. Previous sections looked great, it had it cut, but then right there, for whatever reason, it wasn't able to do a nice trimming. So still a little improvement to really perfect how this is working, but so far I'm liking what I'm seeing most of the time. Now this is a section where I could have it overlapping on the concrete and the grass, but the concrete is a little bit too high, so it works great to have the trimmer here. So you can see all the blades being sliced. Love this, very satisfying. And then I like how that even when it's done with an area, if you have an area where you've added an object, it will then go around and cut around that specific object like a tree or a mailbox or something. So it's nice that it can get all those little areas. The next challenging area is 90-degree angle. So here it's following the line, but then it's turning to continue the path on the driveway, so it's not able to get all the way up in that corner. Again, this is a part where the concrete is a little too high to have it be overlapping when it's doing the edge. And here on the small area, as it goes around, it doesn't have as much room to get all the way up to every edge, so it does an okay job getting a little bit more than it did when mowing. But as you can see, the last challenge here is the sides of these steps. So as it passes the other sides of the steps, there's 1, 2, 3, and it was able to do the last one very well. It got right up, cleaned it nicely, but on the first 2, it completely missed. For whatever reason, it wasn't properly lined up. So here again, from the other angle, you can see it didn't do the first 2, but the last one, it worked very well. Next, I did a test between having it edge not while it's trimming on the non-marked flush boundary, and this is what it looked like. And then I did it again when it was marked as a flush. And then I did it again and it was marked as a flush boundary. And between the two, I really can't tell a difference here. When it was marked as a flush boundary, it does look like it's trying to stay outside that dead grass. So hopefully when the grass comes in, it won't be doing that, but I don't know if there's too much difference there.
And there the TruEdge Trimmer was able to make its way all the way around the yard. Now it did trim, but did it trim 100%? No, I'd say we're about less than 50%. Some areas it would go and it would be doing great, and then it would just stop. And it could be because I was in the way. So I'm gonna have to run this again, give it a few days, let the grass grow, do some trimming again to see how the full results are, to see if we can get that a little bit better.
Now I did end up doing a few more trimmer tests by adjusting the boundary, turning it off in certain areas, seeing if that would help here against the fence. That did great. Here on the edge of the yard, it did great. Still, it's overlapping just a little bit too much. I think I'd like the edge when it just finishes the area to go really far, but sometimes when I trim, I don't want it to go quite as far, but here this did an excellent job on this area. And then one more, this just looks fantastic. Getting the edge of the grass cut down to a perfect trim that I don't have to do any maintenance on. And then here you can see it's following perfectly along that line to get that. Now on the trampoline again, doing two different tests. Here you can see that as it went by, it did a little bit, so that's great. I would say there's definitely some improvement there, and doing one more test, maybe just a little bit more. So I'd say maybe it's improved to about the 75% range. Still room for improvement.
One other thing to mention is so far there has been 0 interactions from me. It's not got stuck at all. It's been able to do everything it needs to do. I could adjust one path as well as adjust a boundary or an obstacle to avoid so that it doesn't get stuck in the path, but so far it's been hands-free. Now it's time to move on to the obstacle avoidance test. So here we have the Goat O1000 starting to mow this area, but some kids have left some objects on the lawn. Now there are 3 different ways in which it does obstacle avoidance. One is just the LiDAR. It's able to see large objects and be able to navigate around them. Second is the AV3D which is time of flight sensor on the front. So not only does it have LiDAR on the top, on the front it has a LiDAR being able to detect objects that are greater than 10 centimeters tall, and it is able to avoid them. And then third is the bumper. So if it bumps into something, and then it will move around and go the other way. As you can see, our objects are going to be moving even if we tell them to stay still. So we'll see if it is able to detect moving obstacles and get out of the way. There is an animal avoidance option in the settings as well, and you can have it where it automatically docks at night, but let's see how it does. And coming up to the first obstacle, sees it, turn to the side. As it comes back, we'll see if it goes around it. And right there, move to avoid it. First obstacle down. And here's the second obstacle. Now it has wheels, so it's gonna move if it bumps it, but it does stop and moves around it. And coming up to it the second time, it sees it with its vision. It's able to go around it, bypassing it and completely missing it. And it even is aware that it does have the trimmer on the side, so as it goes around, it's able to move far enough away without moving the obstacle. Okay, that time it did move it a little bit. And there it did a good job cutting it as close as it could to the wagon. I'd say it did a good job. And there you can see the response time for the 3D time of flight sensor. As soon as I get in frame, it sees me, stops, and goes around. And then you have the bumper, so if it does bump into an object, it is able to stop and does not continue to proceed forward and moves around that object, cutting as much grass as possible. Now, of course, the more objects you have on the ground, the less grass is going to cut, so it's always wise to clean up before the mower goes out. And there is the obstacle avoidance test on the O1000 Pro. I'd say it successfully passed. Now, taking a look in the ECOVACS app here, you can see the yard that I've made. Now, compared to other lawn mowers, they weren't able to create this smaller area, which was great that it was able to do that so that I could customize how that's mowing. And then here you can see the area it mowed. I just did the obstacle avoidance test, so there are some little areas that it didn't get to yet, but it's gonna go back and do all that. And now that the obstacles are gone, it's going to be able to easily mow that. Now in here, this is so cool. You have this 3D map of what it has created. So this is everything it can see here in the backyard. It's seeing different trees, and this is how it is able to navigate around your yard. Love that. And then here in the settings, we have all kinds of different things that we can do. We can add more areas. Again, this can go up to 1/4 of an acre, 1,000 square meters. So for my yard, that would be this entire area, but I'm only doing just a little bit here and there. So we were able to get through about 1.5 yards mowing here before it needed to recharge. So just depending on how much area you do have, you may need to have a few zones so it's able to complete those every few days to keep your yard looking fresh. Here you can go in and create those different paths. You can create a low avoidance zone. So what this can do is it makes it so that it will continue to go even if it sees something like a swing set or something above it, or maybe even it sees grass that's too tall, it's going to still try and mow even if that is a little too tall. So I love having that option. And then you can go and create no entry zones. I tried one for the mailbox here, so it's going to be able to trim around that after it's done mowing that. And then here we have the map option that we can reorient the orientation and so on. If we go into the settings here, we have all kinds of setting options. We can go in and mark flush boundaries. So this is where you want it to automatically go as close as it can to the edge or overlap between the grass and the concrete. And then here you can mark trimmer boundaries. So with this is where it's going to actually go through and do the trimming. So I've adjusted some of these as we finish the first mow, and we're gonna see if we can do a little bit better on the trimming there. You can turn on and off the rain sensor. So if it rains, it's gonna detect that and it will automatically go home. And then animal protection, if that's on, it's automatically gonna go home once it gets dark to save the animals. Then here you have mowing preference per area. So I have all my 4 areas. I can go in here, I can choose the direction it's going to mow. You can even set that to change per week. And then down here you have 2 speeds. You have delicate. Right now it's moving at the quick speed. We have mowing height from 1.2 inches up to 3.2 inches, currently set at 2.4. And then here you have the obstacle avoidance mode. So currently I have a high grass obstacle avoidance mode. So that's what it was for the test. But then if you have shorter grass, you can change that. And this makes it so that it's not going to stop for grass. It's going to keep mowing that. For a normal working grass, I'd probably do short environment just so that it does see all the obstacles that may be placed on the yard. So that is what you can do. And then you can customize all of those. And then my favorite thing is back here on the main page, we can scroll over and create a schedule. So you can have the schedule set to mow, and then you can have it set to trim at different times. So you can set working times, and then it will automatically go out, and then it will come back, charge up, and it can go out and complete the trimming all on its own without any interaction from you. So here we can go in, just set the time, then we can add what that's going to be. We can choose the areas, or we can choose the mowing and when that is going to complete. And here in the settings, we also have the option to adjust robot settings. So here we can change a few things. You can turn on the AI recognition for different obstacles and animals and certain things like that. Here, the human detection was already on. But for maintenance, we can go in and see how our blades are, the trimmer line, as well as the trimmer brush. Now the trimmer line, it does not come with an extra, so get a package that does come with a few extra. Here it's worked 23 times, and it can still do about 317. So plenty there for my yard on a weekly basis. Now they'll last maybe a couple months, and then here you can go in and purchase more. Have I mentioned how quiet it is? So peaceful. So can the ECOVACS GOAT O1000 LiDAR Pro mow the lawn? Yes, it can. Even with this single blade, it was able to do a great job making a carpet-like finish on the lawn. Here you can see how it can adjust up and down and so on. So I'm really impressed by how it did. Now I do need a smaller robot on my lawn, so depending on lawn size, this is going to be perfect for me. Now, it would be nice if it could go a little further, being able to mow more in one mow, but I think having one section one day, the next section the other day, this is going to be a great mower for that. Second thing, can it trim? Yes, it can trim with the TruEdge Trimmer, but I would say it needs to be fine-tuned just a little bit. We are seeing some really cool improvements here. I would say this is going to save me a lot of time from having to go around after to do all of the edging. Now I just need to do just those little areas that it missed, but from the main portion here, especially when I have this trim all the way around my yard, it's going to do a great job getting right up next to that. And now the next thing is, can it mow without getting stuck? Well, good news on this model and on my yard, we had 0 problems with it getting stuck on any portions of the lawn, which is great. That's a huge factor, that I don't have any drop-offs on my yard. Everything's very flat. It works really good. So if you have a nice manicured yard, you shouldn't have any problems with it getting stuck, as long as you have grass everywhere. If you have any soft dirt, maybe something you might need to watch out for. But overall, this is a solid robot mower to have on my premises. I think it's going to be the one I'm going to be sticking with this year because it has that trimmer function, and great to have the LiDAR. Don't need an RTK and anything. It's going to be able to navigate everywhere it needs to go. So if you have any further questions about this model, please let me know down in the comments below. And if you want to pick one up for yourself, make sure you check out the link down in the description. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.